I'm back in the Situation Room with Jane Patterson and Amy Adams. Good evening again to both of you. Let's talk about New Zealand first and then perhaps move on to national. I mean, it's looking pretty much like they're gone, isn't it? 2.3% of the vote. That just hasn't moved. Mm-hmm. And look, this is historic too, isn't it? We haven't had an MMP really without New Zealand first. OK, there was a term there where they were out of Parliament, but pretty much one of the massive features of MMP has been which way is Winston going to go and who is he going to support. This is massive if they crash out tonight.
I think this is probably not just the end of New Zealand first in Parliament, but potentially the end of the movement. When they were voted out in 2008, people like Anne Martin, Tracy Martin and Winston Peters really saw them through that term, but there's just not going to be that infrastructure, or I don't know if there's going to be that commitment there. The succession, there is no succession plan. There's no one really that I see that could drive them through another term enough to restore this, to actually get them back into Parliament, which there was always that opportunity last time. Winston Peters is not going to fight another election. He will retire on this and go to Whananaki and see out his days there. So I think this is incredibly significant for New Zealand First as a party.
And I think it shows too how hard MMP is to be in government for minor parties. Winston Peters and New Zealand First have always been an opposition party. He loves being on the sidelines shouting and railing against everything that's wrong. But when you're in government and you've got to perform and you're a minor player, it's hard. And time again, we've seen minor parties in government get punished.
And Greens is bucking the trend.
The Greens
they
are bucking the
actually
trend.
The only ones that are bucking the trend.
But you go through national governments, Labour
Absolutely.
governments, the minor parties suffer in government.
That's right.
And that's despite having a big bag of putia to throw around. I mean, he had the $3 billion provincial growth fund.
But voters aren't stupid. They'll take your money, they'll say thanks very much, but it doesn't mean they're going to vote for you. And I think that's what they forgot. They thought they could effectively buy their way into the seat in Northland, and that clearly hasn't worked by a long shot.
Amy, your own party has nothing short of a devastating result at the moment, and it doesn't look like it's shifting. 25% of the vote. I mean, aside from Bill English in 2002, you have to go back a long way to see something in that sort of region. Must be a lot of shock.
There's a huge amount of shock, and talking to some of the people in the party, it is shock. And look, they're still holding out hope until we see the full numbers. We don't know yet how many of the booths have come in, how much of this is advanced voting, and there's a lot of close races. But I tell you what's really standing out to me is how many of the seats that we would have thought we could count on are at risk. And actually it's changing, what we're going to see as a result in terms of the makeup quite a lot. I mean, I counted 18 of our electorate seats at risk, including some very strong seats like Ireland, we've talked about, TKC, Taranaki, King Country, Northland, there's some very, Waitaki's been back and forward. Yeah. And that's going to really see actually, in some ways, a saving of the front bench, because if we're losing those electorate seats, the few list positions, we'll see some of those people we talked about, like Nick Smith, back and under the list potentially. So it really changes the makeup of the caucus room quite a lot.